Mark of the Beast, Part 2. Who is the Beast? In the introduction to our Mark of the Beast series, we showed a few of the many theories that people have about the mark. Is it the barcode that keeps track of every transaction on Earth? Every label is divided by 3 sixes. Or is it the Apple computer that originally sold for $666? It has the symbol of innocence lost on it, and it seems keen to take over the world. Perhaps it is the radio frequency identity chip that some people have already volunteered to embed into their hand. Or perhaps it is the new 060606 patent from Microsoft, which blends behavior with banking. Or is it something we already have accepted, like credit cards, or social security number, or even an email address? It could be that the mark is money itself, with its image of the all-seeing eye on it, and the Roman symbols and political leaders, just like the Roman Empire had an image of the beast or an image of the empire. As we alluded to in the introduction, while the mark of the beast may end up being one specific thing, it is necessary to look at the context in which the mark is taking shape. The mark will most likely be a natural result of decades, if not centuries, of preparation. The mark will be the pinnacle of an anti-God agenda that will primarily involve idolatry, deception, coercion, and domination. This agenda that culminates with the mark is an all-out assault on God in an effort to usurp his throne and replace him with a scientific dictatorship that will control the weather, know everything about you, create a new Earth in cyberspace, genetically engineer transhumans, create robots in man's image, provide a utopia of fairness, and even grant eternal life. When I say God and they're attacking God, I'm also referring to natural law, which is the fundamental essence of the universe, encompassing freedom, rights, ancient wisdom, common sense, tradition, karma, and science. To achieve their lofty goals, the current system, especially the United States system, must be taken down, and the reliance on natural law and God must be taken down. God must be eliminated so that your rights from God can be eliminated. If there's no God, there's no rights, just privileges granted to you by the state. We will speak more on these subjects in the future. If we want to answer the question, what is the mark of the beast, then we better ask the question, what is the beast, and what is the beast's image? We will find out that the mark and the image are part of an ancient, continuous, ongoing tradition of mind control, achieved through the political use of religion and idolatry. But for now, let's go to John's vision on the island of Patmos to read what he says about the mark of the beast. Then I saw another beast which rose out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. Revelation chapter 13, starting at verse 11. It works great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of men. And by the signs which it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, bidding them make an image for the beast, which was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast should even speak, and to cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let him who has understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666. We read more about this mark in Revelation chapter 14, verse 9. And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also shall drink the wine of God's wrath, poured unmixed into the cup of his anger, and he shall be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." A couple of things that summarize the mark. First, there is another beast which rose out of the earth. As we will see, this phrase, another beast, is a Bible echo. So we won't have to speculate what this beast is. This beast is one of many. It is another beast. Contrary to popular opinion, this is not a demon or a devil or Lucifer character from hell that comes out of a crack in the earth. The second thing to note in this passage is that the beast is something that will force a religion on the population. So even if you're atheist or agnostic, you should be concerned about this mark of the beast, as it will force you to be religious. It might turn out to be a pure annihilation religion, or it might be pure submission, but make no mistake, you will be forced to worship. Another thing to note is that the mark will be worn or be tattooed or embedded into the body. Also, the mark will involve control of its subjects using economic coercion. And finally, the bad news is that taking the mark results in extreme judgment from God, what most people would describe as certain hell, or in the very least, utter destruction by fire followed by eternal separation from God. So then, who is the beast? Or what is the beast? The best way to interpret the Bible is to let the Bible interpret itself. The Bible is not using the phrase, "another beast rose out of the earth," for the first time here in Revelation. It was previously used back in the book of Daniel. Daniel gives both the vision and its interpretation, so we don't have to wonder about what his beasts were. If you haven't done so already, I would encourage you to read the book of Daniel, since Revelation is like Daniel Part 2. Both books deal with geopolitical powers that are allowed to rule over God's people until God sets up his kingdom on earth. Daniel chapter 7 tells us what the Bible is talking about when it refers to beasts. Daniel chapter 7 verse 15 says, "These 4 beasts are 4 kings who will arise out of the earth. but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever and ever. So, as we see, the beasts are kings, or, more accurately, kingdoms, or empires, that occupy Israel, starting with the Babylonian Empire, then the Persian Empire, followed by the Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire. The first beast mentioned is a lion with wings, and many authors have pointed out that the lion with wings is an apt symbol for Babylon, whose processional way, now housed in the Berlin Museum, was lined with lions. Now, as it turns out, Daniel chapter 7 is just an expanded vision of Daniel chapter 2's vision of an image. In Daniel chapter 2, we find the abstract, or the outline as it were, and in Daniel chapter 7 and chapter 8, we find all of the details of that time period. Daniel chapter 2 tells us plainly that each section of the image is a new kingdom or empire that rules over God's people, Israel. Daniel chapter 2, verse 38 says, "You, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, are the head of the gold." In other words, you are the Babylonian Empire. "After you, another kingdom shall rule over the earth, and then a third kingdom, and there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron," and the legs in the image are made of iron. As it turns out, Daniel, who was given the vision during the Babylonian Empire, was still alive when it got replaced by the Persian Empire. After his death came the Greek Empire, which is given an entire chapter in Daniel chapter 8, and it gives a detailed play-by-play account of this period, perhaps because it deals with a time period in which there would be prophetic silence. This is the time in between the Old and New Testaments. After the Greek Empire, of course, came the Roman Empire, a beast like the earth had never seen. But after the head of gold and the chest of Persia and the thighs of Greece and the legs of Rome comes the toes. The toes, at least in the book of Daniel, do not have a corresponding beast in chapter 7. But, as it turns out, just like all the other body parts, there is another beast for the toes section. Or, more accurately, we will find a series of beasts making up the toes period. The toes describe the state of the Judeo-Christian world once the Roman Empire collapses. Daniel chapter 2, verse 41. "And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom, but some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with miry clay." In other words, some strong countries, like the Roman Empire, like the legs made of iron represented the Roman Empire, there will be iron in the feet and toes. Some countries will be very strong, and some will be very weak. So who or what is another beast that comes after the Roman Empire on the earth? Is it the United States? Is it the European Union? Is it Israel? Is it Russia? Is it the United Nations? Is it China? All we really can be sure of that it's a powerful empire that occupies, coexists, or at least wields influence over Israel and the Christians. The Bible mainly concerns itself with talking about the Judeo-Christian world. As we know well from history, following the Roman Empire, there is not another empire that singly rules over Christians and Jews. The history of the world gets very messy at that point. Revelation then expounds on the toes of the image by giving us a timeline of at least 3 different beasts. One of those beasts lasts for 42 months, also called a time, 2 times, and half of a time. Those 42 months are understood by most Bible scholars as a 1260-year time period. They use Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy, which foretells the Messiah or the coming of Jesus, which doesn't come in 70 weeks. It comes in 70 weeks times 7 days, which is 490 years. From this prophecy, they get the day for a year principle. Using a day for a year principle, the 42 months are 1260 years, and many Protestant expositors of Revelation point to the Holy Roman Empire as a reasonable candidate for the beast of the sea, the first beast in Revelation. This period begins with the end of the Roman Empire around 538 and ends with Napoleon ending papal rule around the year 1798. The beast that we are interested in, the one that has the mark of the beast and the image of the beast, follows this beast of the sea that ends in 1798. Many churches make a pretty good argument for the United States as being that beast. For example, this is the nation more than any other that rules over God's people, both Jews and Christians. Also, the earth in the Bible is used to represent the people symbolically. You can see this in Isaiah chapter 1, for example. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, is talking later on in the chapter to the rulers, the heavens, and the people, the earth. The USA is famously by the people and for the people. Also related to this beast of the earth is a woman in Revelation chapter 12. A woman typically represents the church or the bride of Christ symbolically in the Bible as the true believers. This woman in Revelation chapter 12 flees to the wilderness at this time. And where is the wilderness in 1798? The wilderness is the New World, or the United States, where many religious persecuted people fled to. Finally, the government style of the United States lends itself to a beast with 2 powers. Horns in the Bible represent powers. The USA has a House and a Senate power, also has a 2-party system. United States started off like a lamb, it says of this earth beast in Revelation chapter 13, but it spoke like a dragon. It also represented the Roman Empire, the first empire, and it was in the image of that empire, as we can see in our government style of republic, as well as the architecture that we use is very Roman in the capital of the United States. We also find in Revelation chapter 17 a scarlet beast, or a beast from the bottomless pit, that has riding on it Babylon, the mother of harlots. And also appearing in Revelation, we find the dragon, which may also be considered a beast, but it is one without borders. It is not a real empire, but yet it gives its power to the other beasts. But the beast that we are interested in is the beast of the earth, the one who sets up the image, the one that forces religion and the worship of the image of the beast, and has the mark of the beast. It is important to say what this beast is not. Our popularized modern mythology portrays the beast as the devil or Satan. This false portrayal actually works to the beast's advantage, because no one is going to recognize such a beast. It places the mark of the beast into a sort of science fiction fantasy context, thereby creating the illusion that there's no substance to the idea of the mark of the beast. The beast is a myth, and the mark is fictional. The beast is not the devil or Satan. Revelation is clear to distinguish the beast, which we have shown is a biblical symbol of a political empire, and differentiates that beast from the dragon. The dragon is a symbol of the devil and Satan. He sees the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil or Satan. The dragon is the one that gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority, so they are not the same. Devil means deceiver, and Satan means enemy, enemy of God. And there is nothing mythological about Satan when we look at the modern world and those who are going in direct opposition to God and religion. There is nothing mythological about a hidden hand ruling the earth behind the scenes, giving power and loans to whichever beast it feels like promoting during these last days. As we will see in future sessions, the dragon power, the one who was there since Eden and Babel, and lasts all the way to the 20th chapter of Revelation, is this power that is controlling and directing man's destiny, using the powers of deception, trickery, and bullying. By dumbing us down, numbing us down, scumming us down, and bumming us down. It rules the planet, not just for monetary gain, but for power and control. So please, wake up and put on the whole armor of God, and take courage, because when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So thanks for watching. Please join me next time as we ask the question, what is the image of the beast?